Ryan. People locally know me as the Humble Handyman. Today we're going to build a rocket stove. If you don't know what a rocket stove is, it's a very simple wood-burning appliance that you can cook on. What a rocket stove runs on essentially is small twigs and sticks, just random bits and pieces of kindling that you can find around to create enough heat that you can actually boil water or even cook on a cast iron pan. We're going to build ours today out of bricks. We just happen to have a bunch of bricks laying around on our property. It's very possible to build a rocket stove out of many different types of materials, but this is what we had laying around, so this is what we're going to work with today. So first off, what you'll need when you're building a rocket stove is a level fireproof base, a platform of some kind. We had a whole bunch of bricks laying around, so I just mocked up a little platform out of simple bricks. It's nice and flat, and it's something that I can rest a fire right on top of and it won't catch on fire. The rest of it is going to be built out of chimney bricks that are from a chimney that we pulled out of our house while we were remodeling it. You're going to have altogether, I believe, 5 rows of bricks in here. It takes about 20 bricks in total to build with this method. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll show you how some of this works.
Okay, so we've got a pile of bricks here. For the first couple of rows that we are going to be building, we need to leave enough room to create a chamber to have our fire. So it's called a burn box. So what we'll need to do in order to create that opening is break a brick in half so that we have a half brick to work with. This is a fairly simple process. So here's just a random brick that we got here. If you use a hammer and a chisel, and I tend to wear gloves when I'm working with bricks just because they're a little rough on your hands. If you're going to be breaking one and using a chisel, safety glasses is always a good idea. So what I try to do in order to do this is kind of just create a score line across the top. So that means that I will find about the middle point right there with a simple little flat chisel and a hammer and just start to create a line going across the top. If you're lucky enough to have a brick chisel, which I don't, you will have a much easier time doing this. And just work your way across, creating a bit of a groove so that you've got a good line to break it off of. So I'm going to get a little rougher with it. Sometimes this doesn't work out well. Sometimes they break and you start over, but luckily we've got a whole bunch of just sort of scrap bricks laying around that we can work with. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and start the first row. So for our first row, we need 4 bricks. Well, sorry, 3 bricks. It's a 3.5 brick for this layer. What we're going to do is stand them up in this particular case. How you lay your bricks out is kind of up to you. I pick and choose a little bit just based on what works well with the materials that I'm working with. This, you can see we've taken these apart a few times. They're all burnt, so figuring out exactly how we wanted to lay this out. So I'm going to do my first layer, just simple and flat like this. Oops. Creates a bit of an opening for us to start with. So after I built this first row, what I want to do is lay down something for the fire to sit on so that it has a chance for ash to fall down and for air to come in underneath. So I'm just going to use some wire mesh that we had laying around. Anything that's tight enough that a fire will comfortably sit on it is going to work fine in this case, as long as it's not flammable. So certainly doesn't have to be exactly what we're using. We're going to rest that right there. And for our second row, we're going to do same sort of idea, 3.5 bricks to make it up. So we still have our opening. But with this row, we want to make sure that we overlap our joints. So where there's an intersect between bricks, I want to make sure that my next brick overlaps that, ensuring that it kind of holds it all together structurally a little bit better. So, and then there's my half brick, so that I don't have to go across quite yet. And then there. One more here. Okay. So that kind of creates my burn chamber. In an ideal world, if you were going to put this in a space where it was going to be permanent, you would cement all of these together, or use some fireplace mortar in a tube and squeezing it in between your joints to hold it all together nice and tight. We don't want this to be a permanent fixture for us, so it doesn't have to be quote-unquote perfect. We just want it to serve its purpose in the short term. So I'm just putting everything together loose and making sure that the bricks all hold the structure together on their own. So once you've created that chamber, now you've got a spot for air and ash to escape, and an area where your fire is actually going to burn. So from this point up, I'm going to start building the chimney. For the chimney, you need 4 full bricks each, and you're just going to go from row to row, overlapping your joints to try and keep it structurally sound. So for this one, crossing the opening here, doesn't hurt to just shove this half brick over just a little bit so that there's something for this brick to rest on. This doesn't need to be a work of art, it needs to be functional, so I'm not overly concerned about it being too symmetrical per se. So we lay our bricks in an overlapping pattern. This is creating a chimney. So you want to make sure that your chimney is tall enough that you can get a really efficient burn. That's going to require that the smoke has an opportunity to swirl a little bit before it exits out the top, and it heats up the chamber enough that you're not wasting a bunch of your wood and only having smoke come out the top. So I want to add another 2 rows on top of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and overlap my joints and create 2 more rows and finish off our chimney. Okay, so I have my chimney stacked up and everything's solid. On the top layer, honestly, just for aesthetics, not for any other particular reason, I sat these bricks down in a different direction, so they're slightly shorter. I just thought it looked nice. doesn't have to be like that. So on the top here, obviously our smoke and our heat's going to escape from this through this hole at the top. What we want to do is put something down that we can rest a pot or a pan or a kettle or something like that on. In our case, we actually have a little portable stove sitting around that we could steal the grate off of, so that's what we're going to use, which is this guy right here. You could use pretty much anything that is solid and fireproof that you could rest a pot on, just to create some space where the fire is exhausting so that the heat can actually escape around and keep the fire going and heat your pot or pan. So I'm going to throw this guy down on top, which creates a little perch for me to rest, say, a kettle, or maybe a cast iron pan or something like that. Okay, so we're going to light a fire in here. I would guess that if you've made it to the point of watching a video on rocket stoves, you probably have an idea how to light a fire, but we're going to quickly put something together, so I'll explain that as I go. So first off, we use brown paper bags. Works great for lighting fires, and you know, they're easy to come by. Nice thing about a rocket stove is that the fuel really doesn't have to be very big. It just has to create a hot enough fire to burn in this efficient little chimney and heat your water or whatever. So you can get away with using just little bits of scrap wood, tinder, like small stuff that you would normally just start your fire with will work good for keeping a fire going in your rocket stove. One of the nice things about it is that with all this tiny dry stuff, which can be a little bit annoying trying to pile on top of your paper to get it going, you can literally just drop it right down the chimney and it will fall right on top of the paper. So I'm just going to get a bunch of little tiny stuff first. So the hope of the rocket stove is that you don't have a ton of smoke coming out the top of it while you're cooking. As long as you keep maintaining your fire with some small sticks and twigs and little pieces of wood, you should have no issue with that. It just needs to burn efficiently. So as you first get it going, it's going to smoke until the wood really starts to burn. Otherwise, once the fire is moving along and actually burning comfortably without you having to tend to it too much, it will almost eliminate all the smoke coming out of the top of it. So we're going to give this a chance to really get going. I'm going to feed it some wood and then we'll see where we're at and get a kettle on it. Okay, so at this point, you're going to start wanting to put some bigger pieces in there. More than likely, those pieces are going to want to try and fall over. So what I'll do is I'll just take a brick and set it down in front so I've got something to rest the sticks on so that they don't lean down and want to fall out of the fire. We put that grate in there to make sure that lots of air gets in underneath the fire. So you just want to make sure that that brick's not pressed right up against the front of it so that it still allows that air through. And then now you've got a little bit of a perch for your sticks to sit on as you start adding to the fire. So this fire is going well, actually. You can see there's basically no smoke coming out the top. Our flame is tall enough that it's coming right out the top. You can hear the fire burning efficiently, which is great. This is exactly where you want to be when you start to cook on top of it. So we're going to get our kettle on there and see if we can get some water to boil. All right, so it's a bit of an old kettle, so you can't really hear it whistling. I have to kind of hold the lid down. So we do have boiling water in there. Unfortunately, we've got a bit of a crummy old kettle that we use for camping and stuff sitting on there right now that doesn't whistle very well at the best of times. But that worked well. We didn't use a lot of wood. It took, a small basket of twigs and just scrap that we had laying around to boil some water. So I can imagine you could probably cook a simple meal pretty easily on about the same amount. Okay, so that's about it. I hope that this encourages you to try and make a rocket stove for yourself. I think it's a great idea to be prepared just in case the unforeseen does happen. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe below for more updates from the House and Homestead and the Humble Handyman.